Hello everybody, this is Gregory with How I Lost Over 100 Pounds and I've kept it up for 30 plus years, where there should be no hesitation in your weight loss and weight maintenance. Today we're going to talk about the survivor guilt kind of complex that some people who are losing weight or have lost their weight for some time might experience, or something that you might experience if you lose your weight. Now before I begin, if you need help with weight loss, contact me through the Clarity FM link found here in the episode notes. Also, check out my 2 books, which are on Amazon, that might be useful to you. My website, which has hundreds of articles and recipes that might be useful to you. And lastly, if you appreciate my content, there is a link for PayPal, which would be useful to me. Now, let's talk about survivor's guilt. I've talked about this on my personal series. If you're new to this channel, I have 2 personal playlists, Confessions of an Obese Child, which talks about my experiences when I was a fat kid and adolescent, and then the Reflections of a Weight Loss Warrior series, which goes from when I lost my weight when I was about 17 all the way to maybe about 10 years ago. And I talk about in that episode about survivor's guilt. So survivor's guilt is kind of like, I think it's probably most well known. You're about to get on a plane, for whatever reason you don't get on a plane, and then the plane crashes, and then you're like, why me, why me? Or think of the old Final Destination movies. So it can be somewhat common. And for me, it was pretty prevalent because I had people in my life, kind of part of the nerd group that I was in high school, and then some guys I met later in college who were also overweight. And I always wondered, like, why did I lose the weight and not these guys? In particular, there was a close friend of mine in college who was overweight. He was encouraged in high school to play football. Until he played the line, right? He was offensive line, so they encouraged him to get even bigger, right? Do it for the team, do it for the team. And of course, you want to be part of the team, you want to feel accepted, so he did it. And then in college, he was a big guy. I would say maybe 40 pounds overweight, but he got progressively bigger, which tends to happen when you're overweight. He got diabetes, type 2 diabetes. In his college, I think in high school actually, he got type 2 diabetes. And then that led to complications. He ended up having kidney failure. He was on dialysis for a good 10 to 12 years. And if you know anything about that, that's 3 to 4 times a week where you're hooked up to a machine for hours on end, and it debilitates you and it shortens your life expectancy. He also got testicular cancer. I don't know if that was connected at all to the diabetes. So he had his testicles removed. And then, like a lot of diabetics, eventually he got a necrotic leg from some wound, and he had to have his leg cut off. And then he eventually died. He died about 4 or 5 years ago. And so I look at his life and never had any interaction with women, aside from he paid for some stuff, but never had any interaction with women, didn't have any children. He was essentially an involuntary celibate for all extents and purposes. And so I would look at my life, which, it's not a portrait of perfection by any shape, way, or form, but I've been able to have children. I was married, and I look at kind of the experiences that I've had, and then think of my friend and think he didn't have any of these, and it goes to the like, why me? And I could say intellectually, well, I worked hard, and then after the weight loss, I work hard and I sacrifice, and I fast every day until 3, and no matter what kind of mood I'm in, I'm gonna go work out, and I've never had an injury. All these things that kind of give me credit for what I've done. But ultimately, again, it goes to the question, why me? Like the majority of people that are overweight, there's a lot of overweight people now. We know it's 70% of Americans are overweight, 40% are obese, meaning they're above 20% of their BMI. And the reason I have this channel is it's cathartic for me to talk about it, kind of like the podcast as well and the book, but it's also to help you guys to kind of see the other perspective from the other side of the journey, because you might be in the weight loss journey and I've been in the weight maintenance journey for some time. But you might be envious of me in that I've lost the weight and kept it off for decades. And on one level, it's understandable. I would like to think that you would be more like, that's great that you've done it, I hope you continue to do it. But we've kind of talked about that here with the people with the loser mentality, the victim mentality, where they think it's a zero-sum game. So if you succeed, then I'm failing. When it's not like that, there's enough room for everybody to succeed. And I would want you to succeed, and you would want me to succeed, and you'd want everyone around you to succeed. And that's the way it should be. But I'm not clueless to the idea that maybe overweight people who find out that I've lost weight and kept it off or upset, right? Because they haven't done it and it's a reflection on them. And I totally get it. And look, I'll tell you, like, I do have survivor's guilt. And I could say, well, we could bring the religious element in. God, for whatever reason, wanted me to lose the weight, but then what? God didn't want the other people to lose the weight. You go down that rabbit hole, and it's just like, I don't know. And you can listen to this and not even apply this to weight loss. This could be job related, relationship related. So, somebody you're blind, or somebody in your family's blind. Why did they go blind? Why didn't he go blind? This 5-year-old kid gets leukemia. It's just one of these things. But I would just say, look, if you've lost the weight, and many of you maybe just aren't like hyper neurotic like I am and don't even think about these things. You're like, yeah, I lost the weight, cool. I'm not even thinking about other fat people. Good for you, man, because you're not in my head. And I don't feel that way. I always wondered, and sometimes it peaks more than others. Like when I see an overweight dude who's my age, or when I see an overweight teenager, it just kind of reminds me of the trauma that I had as a kid. And then I just start thinking, like, why me? And I pray for these people that they help lose their weight, because of course, it shortens your life expectancy and so forth. But I don't know, it's just one of those things that I struggle with. And I'm, of course, grateful for what I've done. And I'm grateful to God that I've done it. And ultimately, it's just kind of surrendering to God's will and God's plan. And we just don't know what that is, right? Because we have a finite mind. And we can't understand the infinite. And ultimately, if I were to gain the weight or get stricken with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, it's kind of the same thing. It's human to be like, why? But ultimately, we just have to align our will to God's will, and maybe eventually, upon passing, we'll realize why this is. I mean, you could say cosmically, I lost this weight, so I would create a channel that might help others to lose the weight. And that's, I don't know. Who knows? There's no way to know. All I know is this episode is just me, I guess, having a cathartic moment. But guys, post in the comments, let me know if you dealt with survivor's guilt, or do you resent the people who've lost weight or have always been regular weighted? I'd like to hear from you. Hit the notification, subscribe, and share button. Until next time, take care, God bless, and pray.